was waiting for 6 o'clock, so my clock says it's 5:59. 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 27th, 2023 General City Council meeting. I hereby call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Amara.
Present.
Holmes. Riddell Harris. Here. Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Present. Let the record show we do have a quorum for the purposes of today's meeting. Councilwoman Riddell Harris, please lead us in the pledge.
Be my pleasure. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Without objection, I'll consider the agenda adopted. Hearing none, that shall be the order. Next item, actually, and I skipped over it, Mayor's commendations, proclamations, and acknowledgements. I did want to say bravo to Downtown and Old Town Business Association and the city and everyone else that participated in the tree lighting ceremony on Saturday. Job well done. Lots of people really enjoyed it. So, and thanks to Auburn Fire for giving Santa a lift. Appreciated that too. So great celebration. And of course, we have the Festival of Lights on Saturday. So we'll have a great time with that as well. Rain or shine, we're all praying for good weather. Also, council members, without objection, I'd like to adjourn today's meeting in memory of Lee Buckingham. Lee passed away on November 4th. He served countless hours on both the Arts Commission for the city and also on SHAC. I did have the pleasure of serving with him on SHAC for the city of Auburn. On the Arts Commission, he held a leadership position following fine artists to display their work in and around Auburn. And on SHAC, he helped really, who's a very integral component because he did the drawing, he was the record of the map of where the tiles were and so forth. And so he really did play a very important role in the city of Auburn, and his legacy will live on. There are many other notable contributions that Lee has had a hand in creating, but essentially his love for art and architecture can be seen throughout the city. We're very grateful for his leadership and the love that he showed for our community. And as a result, without objection, I will adjourn tonight's meeting in his memory. Seeing none, that shall be the order, and I will make that announcement at the end. All right, the next item on the agenda is public comment. This is an item for any member to speak on an issue that is not on today's agenda. We can't take action on said items. We can refer them to staff for further consideration at a subsequent notice time. I will hereby open public comment. Is there any public comment? Mm-hmm.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Steve Hyatt. I am the chair of your planning commission, and I was appointed by former council member Daniel Berlant. And realizing that a new council member will need to appoint a new chair, I just wanted to express my interest to the council members and the potential new council member, whoever that may be, that I would be interested in continuing to serve as your chair on the planning commission in the future. That's all I had to say, unless you had any particular questions.
Thank you very much. And there will subsequently be an application process, I'm sure. So please look for that as well, because you would need to reapply, correct, Madam Clerk?
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any additional public comment at this time? Not council report, but public comment?
Yeah, not a council.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Councilman.
I just want to point out that there's a full moon out tonight. And I wanted to thank the Auburn Salvation Army for the wonderful job they did for the Thanksgiving meal. And there were over 1,000 meals served. Some were at the fairgrounds. A lot of them were delivered to people who were in home or couldn't get out. So they did a wonderful job.
Yes, thank you very much, Councilman. Any other public comment? Yes, Madam Council Member.
With that, I'll just add the Run for the Hungry in Auburn was a success. It seemed like a lot of people. I'm sure they made a lot of money for a very good cause, and I feel very honored that Auburn has such a endeavor, and that's good for our city, and everybody I think here was there.
Yeah,
too.
for the
Well,
Interfaith Food Closet. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a very well attended event. So many events. I mean, we're very fortunate to have so many great community oriented events here in the city of Auburn. Any additional public comment at this time? And none online, Madam Clerk. Okay, I will hereby close public comment. And next item on the agenda is business and Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, so tonight we have the only agenda item is the filling of the city council vacancy created by the resignation of Daniel Berlant, who resigned back in October. So the process, as you know, we've released the call for applicants for the seat. That was put on our website, Facebook, and in the Auburn Journal. The city received 6 applications prior to the close of the application period, which was 5 p.m. on November 17th. Those candidates are here tonight, listed in alphabetical order in your staff report, and I'll run those quickly for you. Paul Aronowitz, Richard A. Hall, Glenn Kramer, Heather D. Leslie, Jamie Ross, and Michelle Sierra Salmons. I'll note that Jamie Ross withdrew her application over the weekend, so you have 5 applicants that will be interviewing tonight for this vacant seat. The applications are in the staff report. They were also posted online. The interviews and the appointment of the new council member must take place in open session. So my suggestion to council on this process would be that we suggest that all the candidates be moved into the Rose Room, which is downstairs, prior to the interviews beginning to prevent candidates from overhearing all of the preceding interview questions and responses. Our esteemed community development director / Sherpa will bring each candidate into the council chambers one by one for each interview. They'll be able to remain once their interview is ended. In the staff report, we talked about selecting the top 2 candidates to return for a final interview and selection at a special meeting scheduled for tomorrow. You don't have to do that tonight. If council feels comfortable in selecting the applicant, the candidate tonight, you can do that. There's a resolution. We amended the agenda, sent that out. So you have the resolution to do that. But the deliberation for the appointing of the council member must be done in public. And so once we get through the 5 interviews, then we'll turn it over to council for that deliberation and either selection or come back again tomorrow night. If council decides to select tonight, we'll need to cancel that meeting at the end of this meeting, make sure that we can post that online.
Good.
We've prepared some questions for you. I think that you have those up at the dais. And so if I can answer any questions, I can answer questions, and otherwise we're ready to go.
And I'll give the order of the business. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, and then Councilwoman, if you have questions after
I
that.
was just going to ask what order we're doing with the candidates.
It should be in alphabetical order.
And then as far as the order of the business will be, we will give each candidate 2 minutes for an introduction. There will be then the questions that we have written down. Then there will be public comment for each candidate, which we will limit to 2 minutes each. Responses to the questions will be limited to 3 minutes. And then candidates will be given 1 minute for closing. So that will be the order. Any questions? Okay.
One last thing, you'll also need to take public comment. So you can either do that after each individual interview or do public comment at the end of all the interviews.
Yes, I
Whatever.
have that in the line of business. So we're going to do the introduction, questions, public comment, and then the closing.
Perfect.
So, and if we wanted to have public comment after, we could always have additional public comment if we so felt it was necessary, but we'll do it after each candidate just so that everything is nice and tidy.
Sure. Sounds
So-
good.
Also, council members, without objection, I'd like to suspend the Robert's rules for reconsideration to allow, in the event that there is a motion to appoint an individual and that motion fails, we won't have to have a subsequent motion for reconsideration. I've checked it with the city attorney and that is acceptable. So unless there's any objection, that shall be the order. Okay, that shall be the order. Thank you. All right, we're ready, Mr. Sherpa. And I know how each and every one of you feel because I was in your shoes just 3 years ago. So. Oh, and no Zoom. Would you let Jonathan let them know that they
Shouldn't be watching.
shouldn't be watching on their phone? All in a group watching the Zoom. Huh?
Oh,
Oh,
you took our first candidate. He'll come back.
all right. Well, we'll wait until our first candidate comes up.
Their initial response is 2 minutes.
Their initial response will be 2 minutes. They'll have 3 minutes for each question. Public comment will be 2 minutes. Yeah. Public comment is 2 minutes each, and then their closing is 1 minute. I should have provided that to you in writing beforehand. I apologize, Madam Clerk. I wrote it down. So are we going to change the timer to 2 minutes for the, she's on. I don't even have.
Candidates, we have
Do they have to stand the whole time or do they sit?
They should be at the lectern so that they have a microphone.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Clerk. You're always going to ask the first question. You could go first. Be there. We realized you went down and had to come back up again.
That was,
Getting your steps in, literally.
yes.
All right. All right. Well, welcome to our public interview process.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And we
Members.
we will give you 1 minute to do your introduction. So,
Okay.
or actually, did I say 1 minute or did I say?
It was
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I
Sorry.
think I
You have
can
2
keep it to
minutes.
One, possibly.
It doesn't
Um,
sound like the mic's on them, is it?
Is the microphone on? Do I have to lean closer?
Yeah, you need to almost, really be
Okay.
right up to it.
My name is Paul Aronowitz, and I've applied for the open position as council member. And I did so because I think I'd be a benefit for the council as a member. I'm a longtime Auburn resident. I've been very interested in Auburn, both as a resident and as a business person in Auburn. I have a vast experience in both financial and legal matters and in organizational matters as a result of my experience as an attorney and a business person. I think I work well with people and I listen well and I digest information well. And I think those would all be good attributes for a city council person. My interest in Auburn goes very deep, having raised my kids here. And I expect to spend the rest of my life here, hopefully. And I'd like to see Auburn basically go forward with a plan for its future. And I'd like to be a part of that. And I'd be very excited to do that. And I cede the rest of my time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And as I mentioned, we do have a series of questions. So we're going to begin with Councilman Holmes.
Well, you kind of answered this already, but why do you want to serve on the city council?
I want to serve on the city council because I think I could actually be a benefit to Auburn. I've had a lot of experience working with groups of people on both private foundations and on corporate boards. And I've been very effective in terms of helping bring people together and resolve issues. And I also think I've got an attribute in terms of being able to identify issues and potential solutions. And I think that would be very helpful for the council, and I think would be very beneficial for the city of Auburn.
Thank you.
Okay. The second question is, what are the roles and responsibilities of city council members at City Hall and in the community?
In terms of the city council, I think their role is actually to effectively manage and give direction to staff as well as to the employees of the city in terms of the direction the city should be going in. I think they need to have a grasp upon the city's issues and also a focus on how the city can move forward in the future. And I think it's really their role to be the leaders in terms of direction and guidance. The implementation should be done by the staff. As far as their role in the community, I think they need to be involved and visible to show their interest in issues, their interest in the people, and the interest in the welfare of Auburn. I think in that sense, their presence, their attitude, and their presentation is important in terms of that leadership and role modeling for how the rest of Auburn should be moving forward.
Vice
Okay.
Mayor?
Great, thank you. What is your understanding of the city's current budget and fiscal position? And what specific suggestions would you have to change it if needed?
I think I've looked at one city budget and it was probably last year or something. I don't really have specifics that I can say right now in terms of how to fix it, but I think the city needs to be looking forward and they need to be thinking about future revenue streams and future plans, and the decisions they currently make need to be made with those thoughts in mind. I happen to have been the attorney for Nella Oil, which became Flyers, and when they divested themselves of their retail operations, the sales tax that they generate that still come to Auburn because the purchaser is based in Auburn are somewhat tenuous. And in that sense, there's no guarantee that that will go forward, both because the purchaser of Flyers is not bound to stay in Auburn necessarily, although it's certainly the intent of the dwellies that they do. And the other thing is the sales tax or gasoline tax has got to be declining over time simply because of the conversion to electric cars. And so if Auburn is relying on that stream of income, I think they need to start at least planning for how they're going to supplement that or replace it.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Amara, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
No, thank you. What objectives do you believe are most important to position the city for long-term success?
Wow, that's a
Right,
a
you
big
probably answered it
question.
A little bit.
Well, I think it needs to position itself. One is financially, because without finances, the city is not going to be able to operate. I think it also needs to position itself in terms of being an attractive place for people to want to live and want to work at the same time. And I also think that given the proximity to the American River Canyon, we need to be thinking about long-term fire risks and how to ameliorate the long-term effects of what seems to be increasing wildfires in the area.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our 4 questions that we had planned, which I'm thinking we probably should have had a couple more questions since it's going so quickly, but I don't know if we can do that, Mr. City Manager. It would have to be for everybody. We
It would
can
have to be
certainly,
for everybody, but council should be able to ask any kind of follow-up
Yeah,
questions that
and I will ask
you
for
want,
that. So, I will, I have some follow-up, but council members, do you have some follow-up for, Mr. Aronowitz?
Yes.
Yes, Councilman Holmes.
Yes. Are you a graduate of Leadership Auburn?
I am not, unfortunately.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the same lines, can you just kind of outline briefly what nonprofits or what organizations you've had a role or pretty major role in? I look at your summary,
well,
but maybe you can,
Well, I was named Placer Conservator of the year before last. I've done a lot of work with Placer, I should say Placer Land Trust Conservator of the Year. I was involved early on with a GATE Parents Association that organized a GATE program for the elementary school system back in the 80s and 90s. I've been on the Auburn Faith Hospital Community Foundation Board. I've served on the Placer Union High School District Budget Board Committee. I'm presently on the Placer Community Foundation Finance Committee. That's about all I can think of offhand.
thank you.
Councilwoman, or do you have a question, follow-up? I have some, but I'll go last.
In terms of planning, have you thought about our current staffing or issues that we've had relating to staffing or labor relations or salaries and what kind of improvements or how we might look at that moving forward with how we've been going?
I haven't, but I would assume that if I am fortunate enough to be appointed the vacant seat, I would actually work through the materials that are available and what's been done in the past and what could possibly be done in the future. And
Have you worked with organizations that are larger, around like 100 people? You own your own business, so I just wondered, have you worked with larger public organizations?
I've worked with large corporations, both on their boards as a board member and as an attorney, including Flyers, which has over 100 and had many hundred. And a couple of low-income housing developers that had large staffing.
Okay. Great, thank you.
I do have some follow-up questions, but in those capacities, you really were counsel. You were legal counsel. You weren't leading a team. You weren't leading their staff, but they were large organizations, but you were counsel advising, correct? You weren't doing the day-to-day business. You were.
Well, I ran several companies myself. I ran a manufacturing plant in Los Angeles that manufactured furniture for Costco. We had 60 employees. I was the CEO of a pizza company called Zia's that sold frozen pizzas to Costco, Safeway, Raley's. And I think we ate more in my office on Auburn Ravine Road than we probably should have, because it went very big very quickly and then collapsed for lack of funding. Frozen food is a very expensive product to put into stores. So in that sense, I have managed as a chief executive officer several corporations that have had multiple, many employees.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about your city involvement in particular. You talked about being very active in a variety of nonprofit and service organizations in the city, but can you tell us about your specific involvement with the city of Auburn?
Well, most of my involvement with the city of Auburn has actually been standing at this podium since I am partners with some of the larger office developers in Auburn. And fortunately, we've got to the age where we no longer are developing. But most of my involvement has been with city staff. I was involved with Bob Richardson when he was the I'm not sure what the position is called.
He was
City manager, right.
at the time.
When he was a city manager, we helped bring Sierra Nevada Conservancy into Auburn. We worked closely with the city of Auburn, with the staff, the planning staff on that, in terms of putting together promotional brochures and information to encourage them to locate in Auburn. And I've worked with the Planning Commission on multiple projects in the city of Auburn and on several appeals from the Planning Commission to the City Council.
So as a project proponent and the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, it's a great state agency under Resources Agency. I remember when they located here. I
Right.
think it was during the Schwarzenegger administration.
It was, yeah, I think
Yes.
he authorized the funding.
Yes, I was.
I didn't
I
have,
was
did he have an
witnessing.
did he do that at Bear River? Was that where he
Yes,
did the
he
event?
did. He
Yes.
signed them. Yeah, Bear
Right,
River.
yeah.
Can you tell me what steps you took to prepare yourself for the application and for your interview today?
Very little. I just gave it a lot of thought. And then I read the application and I put down what I thought were my attributes that I hoped the council would appreciate, and that I'm bringing somewhat of a fresh look in the sense that I have not been that deeply involved in the city politics except from the periphery. But I have a great interest in the city of Auburn and a great interest in seeing the city of Auburn go forward.
I have a question too.
Yes.
Since you brought up Nella Oil and some other development in the city, I just wanted to make sure that with your current dealings, you don't think there would be any conflicts of interest or anything that would be troublesome with being on this side where we're doing the land development or the general plan and the work that you do.
I don't think there would be, for several reasons, one of which is Flyers is no longer actively involved in the city of Auburn. What they're actually doing is they divested themselves of the retail and distribution of petrochemicals and buying other projects, and none of them are in Auburn. And my real estate partners and I have kind of finished our run at developing since we're kind of at the point where it's hard to want to start from the ground up again.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, as you know, there's a vacancy and we have to make an appointment. So that person that comes in will have very little time to really quote, get up to speed. Do you feel comfortable stepping in and making important decisions right away for the city of Auburn? And if so, or, you know, how would you go about doing that?
Well, I like to read and I like to study and I like information. And I think I digest information relatively quickly and thoroughly. And that's kind of been a occupational necessity. I'll give you a quick story. About 15 years ago, I got a call from Walt Dwelly. I was on my way back from Napa. My wife was going to walk in a breast cancer walk the next day, the Avon 60-mile breast cancer walk from San Jose to San Francisco. And Walt Dwelly told me that Flyers was buying all of Tesoro's retail gas stations in the state of California. And this was like the middle of October. And he said, we have to close by November 13th. So I literally had 4 weeks to digest all of that material, as well as drafting the agreements and closing the deal. So work is not a problem. I like to work. That's why one of the reasons I wanted to apply, because my occupational work is slowing down as I'm slowly retiring, and I would like to work more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Holmes.
Yes, I'm wondering whether, if you are appointed, whether you will be willing and able to run again in November of next year.
I would be. If I thought I was doing a good job and I thought I was serving the citizens of Auburn, I would consider running again. I would consider running in November of 2024.
Just looking over your responses for any potential follow-ups.
I have a quick one.
Yeah, but what I was gonna, go ahead.
While you were looking.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about the future of Auburn and having a plan. What do you see as the future of Auburn? When you're thinking 10 or 20 years, is there any direction that you see Auburn going in the future?
I would like to see it attract people who can actually contribute both economically and socially to the city of Auburn. And in that sense, it would be nice to attract, businesses that could help Auburn grow. So, what they look like, I don't know. Quite honestly, I'm not an expert on what industries would be most beneficial in terms of a tax base or employment, but it would be nice to actually explore those concepts to determine what kind of a mix would be best for Auburn to kind of keep Auburn's present character, but yet be able to financially sustain itself.
Thank you.
Yes, so the fourth question that Councilwoman Amara had asked was, what objectives do you believe are most important to the position for the city for long-term success? And I thought if you mentioned something with regards to fire risk and, but can you maybe expound upon that a little bit more, addressing really what objectives you believe are most important to the position
In terms of
of
fires,
long-term success? Not flyers, but just any
no, fire,
fires, not just, I'm saying, I'm referring to fires because you just mentioned that.
No, I'm
So-
just,
But I'm just wondering if you can maybe go into a little more detail on your response to the question. What objectives do you believe are most important to the position for the city for long-term success?
well, I think one of the most important is financial, that it actually develop a financial plan to maintain financial viability going forward. As I mentioned, my understanding is the city budget is to some extent dependent upon gas revenues, and at some point those may go away or be reduced. I also think it's just good to have a healthy financial environment that the city can meet its financial needs and has a plan on how to do that. So I think planning for a financial future is one. And I think the other one I mentioned was environmental in terms of the fire risk. And the third one I think would be to some extent could be water. So, we had a great water year last year, but I know the year before that, I pulled my lawn out and lost several trees because I didn't realize that I needed to be watering the trees separately from the lawn. So I'm not sure that answered your question, but I'm not sure what specifically you're asking for.
Well, the question was just what objectives do you believe are most important to the position to position the city for long-term success? So really, you're saying to have to address fire risk and then to have a financial plan to address our fiscal stability. Do you have any ideas for what that kind of plan could be?
I think I'd actually have to review and digest the information with regards to what the present financial situation is. I think it would be presumptuous otherwise. The fire I can actually think about a little bit because I live on the canyon and I love the goats. So
Everyone loves the goats. Yeah, okay, good. Council members, are there any other additional questions at this time? No. Thank you so very much. We will ask if there's any public comment for our candidate. And if so, if you would please have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. And is there any public comment? Okay, well, don't go too far because you still you have an opportunity to give a closing statement. So if there is no public comment, and I believe that Madam Clerk, I said 1 minute for a closer. Thank you so much for the reminder.
I'll
So
probably
you have 1 minute to give a closing.
I'll probably need a second. I thank you very much for the consideration and I appreciate all the hard work you all put into being members of the city council and being the mayor as it rotates around. And I thank you and I would look forward to being part of the team.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. All right. We'll just wait a moment for our next candidate. Is it Mr. Hall? Mr. Hall, I think it's next. Yes.
If I may, would you state the candidate's name clearly?
I'll have them state their name. Yes, thank you. Mhm.
I think you knew that you never got his name.
Oh, okay. It's Paul Aronowitz was that candidate, Paul Aronowitz. Good evening.
Greetings, how are you?
We will ask you to introduce yourself and then state your name for the purposes of the record, and then you have 2 minutes to give an introduction.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mhm.
So my name is Richard Hall. and I'm a local attorney in Auburn. Have been in Auburn since 1995, and been very involved in a variety of things with the city. Not the city officially, but the city unofficially, as it were. I was president of the Chamber of Commerce. I was on the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce for 10 years. I still chair the Government Affairs Economic Development Committee of the Chamber of Commerce. And we deal with a lot of the issues, same issues that come before the City Council. So familiar with those. Also chaired the 4th of July celebration for about 6 years, which was a joy because that's my favorite holiday of the year. But it's a lot of work. I have been involved in a variety of things. I give you an example. We had 14. Okay. So we had an issue a few years back where when it was still Flyers Energy, and the legislature introduced some legislation to take the taxing money away from the point of wholesale sale and put it where the retail sale was. And together with a variety of people, but we at the chamber mounted a campaign and went to the legislature and resisted that and kept that revenue here in Auburn. A similar example is a few years back, there was a proposal that gasoline would be limited to 1-gallon containers. And we have a lot of agriculture and people who work on farms and all that, and they can't get by with 1-gallon containers. And so we resisted that as well. So I've been involved in a variety of efforts to protect the city's interest and hope to get to do that. I will tell you what, sitting downstairs and talking with people, no matter who you choose, the city's going to be in good hands. You've got a great group of people to choose from.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we're going to begin with Councilman Holmes.
Yes, so you've kind of answered this already, but why do you want to serve on the city council?
The most basic reason, I think I can make a difference. I think I can help. I'm aware of the issues that the city's facing. One of in my opinion, the most dramatic issue we're facing is creating more sustainable and diverse revenues. And my Government Affairs Committee has been addressing that issue all year long. We've recently gotten the approval from the board of the chamber to initiate a program called Auburn, Abundant Auburn. And it's an effort on the part of private companies to work together with Jonathan and other city officials to bring new businesses and new types of business in. We're actually focusing specifically on energy and adventure businesses. Okay.
Second question is mine. What are the roles and responsibilities of city council members at City Hall and in the community?
Boy, that's a good question. So officially, that the city council members address the issues that come before it. I would say probably the single most important thing is addressing budgetary issues and other strategy issues. I also feel that maintaining public works, police service, fire service are the most important things that the city council can address, but there are a whole variety of things that do get before the city council. My thought process would always be, what is the first and foremost thing that the public expects from us if we're city council? And they expect good management of their money. They expect to have their basic services, whether it's sewer, water, or et cetera, taken care of. These days, I'd actually throw internet connectivity into that because it's so important to everybody. And of course, fire safety, police safety. So that's what I'd say official responsibilities. The unofficial responsibilities are to represent the city as best one can in a variety of activities, both many social activities that need the presence of the city to have that connection between the community and the city council. Being out and about and talking to people, some of you know, I walk the city every day. I walk 2 miles in the morning, 2 miles in the evening, and love doing that. And I run into people all the time, and I learn things about the city that I wouldn't if I were sitting at home. So I think the unofficial part, to answer your question, Madam Mayor, is about really being out there in the community and knowing what people are thinking about what we're doing in the city.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Riddell Harris.
Thank you. What is your understanding of the city's current budget and fiscal position? And what specific suggestions would you have to change it if needed?
Another great question. I think the city today is in pretty good shape. Part of that has to do, we had a significant chunk of ARPA money come in, and that has helped fill a lot of holes that have existed for a while. I was pleased to see that the council approved expenditures for improving roads. It's been a major complaint of citizenry for some time now. And the city budget is similar to the state budget in the sense that there are only so many areas that you can cut in. Some things are statutory and you must provide them. I know we've had a challenge recently, for instance, having the fire station staffed, and some money got moved around, so we're able to staff the fire stations, and that is a key thing that we have to do, I believe. So I think we are in good shape, provided that there's no diminution of the revenues, no substantial diminution of revenues coming in. You know, there are always ups and downs based on the vagaries of the economy, but we have some what I would call substantial challenges, in that we get derived such a large percentage of our revenues from a single source. And that is the reason why I support the sustainable and diverse revenue approach. And that's why at the Chamber, we've created Abundant Auburn, and why we're pushing in that direction. Did I answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I think it's my-
Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. So what objectives do you believe are most important to position the city for long-term success?
Well, I think that's a terrific question, because I was at a meeting recently. I have a variety of entities there, but GSEC was the lead entity, I think, at that. And the question they posed, I thought was great, is this, okay, where do you want to be in 20 years? And that's the question that we really need to be thinking about. So in response to that, I think that more than anything, we need to secure our financial future. That is the number one thing. The number two thing, I think, is look at what is coming down the road at us. There is tremendous change happening in the world with artificial intelligence and self-driving autos and all kinds of things. And we need to be aware of that and be thinking about the world, not only as it exists today, but as it's likely to exist in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Granted, none of us have a crystal ball sitting in front of us, so we don't know exactly what is going to happen. But we can, be smart about it, use educated guesses, and look to other experts, because no one I know has all of the answers. And so I think that's where it's really important to look to people who have expertise in specific areas.
Thank you. All right. So that concludes the fixed questions for this part of the interview. And so we're going to open it up to council members for follow-up questions. Council members, follow-up. Did I start? I think I started over here last time.
Go ahead.
Oh, sure.
Councilwoman Amara.
Well, I think the most important part of being on city council is listening to our constituents, listening to our fellow council people here, and trying to reach a consensus, or at least, an understanding. And then if we aren't successful with our position, at least trying to understand different perspectives. My question to you is, how do you feel you are in that capacity, and what experience have you had? Because I know you're an attorney, I'm an attorney, and generally attorneys say what to do and don't necessarily have to compromise. But
Oh no, Councilwoman Amara.
I'm a mediator too.
Yes, you have lots of compromising.
Well, I'd actually say that practicing law is probably a good role for that because you learn to argue both sides of a case. You don't know who's going to hire you, so you're going to do that. And in that process, what you, at least I've learned to appreciate is, everybody has an opinion and it has validity. And so you need to take that into consideration. I will be a strong advocate for the things that I believe in. And if as a team, the council says, no, we're going to go in this direction, I accept that and I'll support it. So I think that's what's really critical is to really support what the council does as a whole and make sure we can, that doesn't mean kowtowing to the other members. It doesn't mean that you just naturally agree to what somebody else is proposing, but it does mean that you advocate your position as strongly as you can. And if you lose, right? And you lose gracefully and support everyone else in the process. So to answer the other part of your question though, in terms of what experience I've had doing that, I've been involved in a variety of other organizations and, issues come up in those organizations, the not-for-profit that I'm a member of. And again, you advocate the position and other people come up with their things. Even in the running of my practice, I've had, some of my team say, well, wait a minute, wouldn't it be better if we did this? And I will say, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. I don't pretend to have the answers. I have an open mind. And I do have some strongly held opinions, but I also know that it takes compromise. In fact, I'm going to segue for 25 seconds and tell you my favorite political picture of all time is Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill sitting at a table, drinking whiskey, smoking cigars, playing cards, and cutting deals. And to me, we need more of that approach to politics, not less in governance.
Councilwoman Vidal Harris.
Thank
Vice
you.
Mayor, sorry.
It's okay. I'm not a big drinker, so maybe water.
No scotch for you.
No, not a big Scotch fan. Anyway, wanted to ask, our staff are the most critical element of the city. They are out in the public every day, working hard in the rain, working late nights, all those kind of fun things that they do to keep the city going. Do you have a lot of experience with large organizations and listening to people who you don't necessarily see every day and making sure that you're meeting the needs of a larger group of people in an organization?
Yeah, I can harken back to in earlier days, I worked on the AMRAAM missile project for a used aircraft company. I was a project manager for that. And in that capacity, I was really the guy who handled the budget and all those issues for that development. And that involved people that were far up the chain of command from me and far below the chain of command from me. And it was important to be in touch with all of them and understand what their concerns and needs were. And I did that. On a different level, I will tell you, walking the streets of Auburn, there's a public works employee named Tony who I stop and chat with all the time. Great guy and does hard work. And I love to meet with him and hear what's going on for him.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Holmes, did you have any follow-up questions?
Well,
Mr.
yes.
Hall?
Yes, I will. Thank you. So are you a graduate of Leadership Auburn?
In 2009, the best class ever.
They all say that.
Yeah.
2009, okay. And I have another question. You recognize that if you're appointed, we're expecting that you would run in November of next year to fill out the term that was Daniel Berlant was at. So would that be a problem for you?
I don't think so. I mean, I'd be candid with you. It's going to depend upon the experience and what my constituencies say. So it's all our constituents in that respect because we're generally representatives of the city, not specific districts. And if, I've been president of other organizations and if they want me back, I'll be back. And if they don't, I won't be, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward in that sense of the word.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I had a couple of follow-up for you questions. Can you tell me how you prepared for the application process and for the interview today?
Yeah, I can. So in terms of the application process, I actually went back and looked at my CV, my campaign materials from when I ran last fall, and all the things that I put together for those purposes, because they pretty well summarize and have been and have vetted what my beliefs and my thought process are for city council. I was fortunate enough to get, I don't know, 2,500 or so votes. So people liked what I had to say. Just last week, I'm, walking the street and somebody says, so, are you putting an application in for that position? Because I voted for you and I want you to be in there. And so I listen to that. That's important. If I have the opportunity, I will actually engage in another process where I solicit direct comment from all of the voters, the people who can't come here and show up and have their voice heard. Even if they can show up there, they don't usually. But I think it's important to hear from those folks.
So just to follow up, how would you solicit comments from all voters?
I think that preliminarily, I would make my email available. And if they want their email available to me, then I will send them information about the things that the council is voting on and say, what do you think? Should I vote for this? Should I not vote for this? And I'd bring that back to the council and share it with the council. And I think we might learn a bunch of things that we don't currently know by doing that process.
I'm writing, sorry.
Sure, no worries. So what I want to know is, what do you want to know that you can't ask in here?
Hold on. All right, I did want to ask a question with regards to your application. I was just wondering, there was a fact that you stated, and I just wondered where you got that information, because it was alarming to me. It says first responders, 50% of LEOs take their own lives due to stress.
That's nationally. That's not necessarily here in Auburn.
So 50%. So where does that? That's a
huge number.
50% of law enforcement.
So it's probably
commit
an
suicide
incomplete
due to
statement.
stress.
Apologize. It's an incomplete statement. 50% of the people who die in the course of their service for police or fire die as a result of self-inflicted injuries.
Okay.
And I've had some conversation with the chief about that, as a matter of fact. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for clarifying that,
Yeah.
because that just seemed alarming to me. And so I appreciate that you took time to clarify that. Are there other follow-up questions? Yes, Vice Mayor?
Yes. So we were talking about, you talked about securing our financial future. What do you think that the future of Auburn looks like to you if you had to pick, if you were saying what Auburn should look like in 10 or 20, probably 20 years?
I think if we want to preserve the feeling that we have in Auburn, that what we need to do is not look for big stores and the things that typically bring in a lot of tax money per se, but look at industries that will bring in well-paying jobs. We already have an identity in the world as the endurance capital of the world, and Mayor's made a great effort to develop a friend city recently, and I think that's great. I think we can leverage that a lot. We also have the presence of what is now World Connect, used to be Flyers. And one of the things that Abundant Auburn is going to pursue is developing more of a relationship with them and seeing what can we do, what other energy related companies can we bring in to support your position here, so that rather than just saying, geez, we hope we hang around, we actually work on bringing things in that make them want to be here. There's also, Bosch is bought its $1 billion plant, and they'll be making semiconductors. They'll be doing a lot of things that are energy related. We have
That's in Roseville, of course.
yeah,
It's not in
of course, but we can benefit from it, right?
I'd love it if they were in Auburn, but
Yeah, well, so would I. There's some other things that we're not supposed to talk about that are in Auburn, but I won't mention those. But we have just over the hill, that is to say, that's what I call Reno in that area. There's a lot of minerals over there that are being used to make batteries. We have charging stations being made here. I think we can really develop Auburn as an energy capital. And so we have an energy identity and we have a adventure community identity.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
any other questions? Thank you very much. If you'd like to take a seat, and I will open this up for public comment.
Okay.
And public comment is 2 minutes, Madam Clerk, correct?
Public comment typically on items is 3
Well,
minutes.
but we, for the purposes of today, we made it 2, right?
Public, we can make it 2.
Yeah, we're making it. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Council, Jackie Weston, CEO of the Auburn Chamber. I know most of these candidates, one of them since I was in 2nd grade. But I would like to stand up here and acknowledge that Richard Hall, who I've worked closely with for the last 3 years, was endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce last year during the election. We truly believe he is what's best for business. We appreciate all he's done. I feel like he is one step forward in his thinking and his looking at things. And I think, as I believe all of these candidates would be great for council, and you'd be lucky to have all of them, any of them, I mean. I think Richard is what's best for our small business and the city as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Additional public comment? All right, Mr. Hall, would you come back up to the lectern and give your closing statement? You have 1 minute.
I didn't hear you, sorry.
Since you're a walker, that includes walking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. In fact, I'm a little low on walking today. Yeah, so closing statement. You know, I love Auburn. I think it's a great city. I think it has enormous opportunity going forward. I think it's really important that we work hard so that we preserve the historic aspect of Auburn, but being mindful of the future and addressing the challenges that are coming and the opportunities that are coming. A couple of years ago, I did a presentation to the chamber and a few other entities about what's happening technologically and how it represents both a threat and an opportunity. And what I believe that the city should do is really embrace that opportunity while being mindful of what threats it poses in terms of securing our financial position. And something perhaps as obscure as parking, you know, that we've spent a number of dollars over the years on analyzing parking. And while there is, I won't say there's autonomous cars in your future tomorrow, they are coming, and it will change the whole nature of how we do business. It'll change the nature of how much parking we actually need, whether that's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or 20 years from now. And I think we need to think about that sort of thing. I think the council is a team, and it's important that each team member's voice gets heard. And it's also important that the council moves and that team moves collectively.
Thank you.
Am I over time?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, then, thank you. And I ask for your support.
Thank you so very much. Sorry. We have our next candidate, Mr. Kramer. Would you please introduce yourself with the statement of your name for the purposes of the record?
Glenn Kramer.
And you have 2 minutes for an introduction.
Thank you. Thank you, council. Pleasure to be here. Sorry it's under the circumstances of Daniel's resignation. He was a great guy. He still is. You know, in the application, I've indicated that I have over 50 years of public service in both professional and volunteer capacity. I was an HR director, retired from Menlo Park after 39 years. In addition, I've concurrently volunteered with various committees at the cities I've lived in. Foster City, I was 24 years on the Newark Planning Commission. And then with regard to Auburn, I have lived here since 2011, and I have been appointed to the Ad Hoc Annexation Committee, which I chaired for 3 years. I am a member of the Sustainability Advisory Committee, and was a member of the Auburn Planning Commission, serving as vice chair earlier in the year. And I'm currently a member of the Pioneer Community Energy Program Advisory Committee. As far as priorities, number one would be fire protection. I support hardening of the infrastructure and clearing of the Baltimore Ravine Shed fuel break, which I see that there was a grant just recently awarded. Completion of the circulation element and the general plan update, and adopting the form-based code that's currently in progress. We also have to keep an eye on amendments made to parcels outside of our, in our sphere of influence, but in the county, particularly with regard to what the county does to upzone several properties and the current processes they're going through with the various plan updates. Support the branding project. Also the airport operations and continued development.
Mr. Kramer, your time, we're being very clear on our timing. So thank you. That's your 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
We're going to start our questions, and the first one comes from Councilman Holmes.
Yes, exactly why do you want to serve on the city council?
I've served and accumulated a lot of experience over the years, and I think it's time to put that to use in volunteering for or contributing to the city council in a positive way. I'm retired now, so I have the time and the energy and the motivation to serve. I am interested in almost all parts of city government and have done so over the years.
Thank you. Next question is for me. What are the roles and responsibilities of city council members at City Hall and in the community?
What are the roles?
What are the roles and responsibility of city council members at City Hall and in the community?
Well, of course, to be a representative of the city in making decisions that are in the best interest of the city. And also, I know that each council member serves on various committees and works hard to work in a more regional aspect of that. So there are several regional duties that need to be fulfilled. I know one, I serve on Pioneer, and that's very interesting.
Vice Mayor Bedell Harris.
Thank you. What is your understanding of the city's current budget and fiscal position? And what specific suggestions would you have to change it if needed?
City currently adopted a balanced budget. I think it was 17.9 million. They show that in the coming years, there's a degree of surplus. They also have a healthy reserve. And so I think in the coming years, what we have to watch out for is maintaining a strong, healthy sales tax base, business base. We also have to prepare in case of any shortfalls in businesses leaving or different applications of state law that might affect the collection of taxes. And we need to be prepared for that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. What objectives do you believe are most important to position the city for long-term success?
Well, first of all, the safety of the city, that would be with regard to fire protection and maintaining the city's ability to harden the community against wildfire. In terms of long-term, we have to find efficiencies in city government. And as many of you know, or all of you know, I've been involved in working on energy efficiency, which could save us a ton of money going forward in the short and long term.
Okay. Well, that concludes the set questions that we have for today's interview, but we will also I'll open it up to council members for some follow-up questions. So I'd like to start with Councilman Holmes. Do you have any follow-up questions?
I do indeed, yes.
Thank you.
So are you a graduate of Leadership Auburn?
No,
No. All right. And if you are appointed to this position, are you prepared to run a campaign to be elected next November?
yes.
Okay, let's see. Councilwoman Vidal Harris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two quick questions. The first one is, you said you had worked in large organizations before because you've worked in government. What is your experience working with staff? Our staff is great and we want to make sure that we're meeting their needs. What's your experience working with staff or getting in touch with staff that maybe you don't see on a regular basis, but trying to make sure you're meeting their needs?
As IS manager, I interacted with and had a great relationship with all the departments that I served because IS is a customer service organization and our customers are staff. I also have worked with many or several members of your staff in Auburn here, and they're outstanding. Menjel, Matt Carducci, and Amy, of course, are wonderful.
Yeah, we have great staff.
Yeah, you need more of them.
I'm sure that we would all love to have as many staff as we could have. One more quick question. We talked a little bit about the future of Auburn. What would you envision for the future of Auburn 20 years from now? What direction should we go in as you see it?
Yeah, I would like us to continue to manage carefully our growth and try to work with the county as cooperatively as possible if we can't annex property. We have a large sphere of influence and I think that needs to be well managed, whether it's Auburn or the county, in order to be able to have a successful and livable Auburn. I would like to see more complete street progress and beautification and sustainability in terms of urban heat, mitigating urban heat zones and beautifying the community. And I'm also supportive of the arts program.
Great, thank you.
Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. So you indicated that you worked as in the Menlo Park Human Resources, your HR?
Human Resources and Information Services.
Okay. Now, does that experience help with regard to any being on city council?
Oh, sure. I managed 2 of 3 divisions under administrative services. The only one I didn't manage was finance. But I interacted very closely with finance because I managed payroll. And so I am very familiar with the city's city finances. And in fact, I would like to see, I haven't seen that there's a current CAFR certification. The last one I saw was 2014. I'd like to see that brought up to current speed.
Thank you. And then I'll just do one more follow-up question.
Absolutely.
So I think one of the most important things as sitting here on city council is to listen and take in information and also work with our fellow city council people here. Do you feel you are superior in that with regard to all the other candidates? And if so, or if not, how would you like to improve? Or
Well, I can't speak for the other candidates, but I can say that I'm very good at it. And that's evidenced by the fact that in almost every committees I've served on, I've either been chair, vice chair, or secretary.
okay, thank you.
And that requires you to build consensus.
Yes.
Yes. So I have a couple of questions. The question that I had asked was, what are the roles and responsibilities of city council members at City Hall and in the community? And you mentioned to be a representative of the city and then to sit on regional bodies. But what role do you see the city council members having in terms of staff?
In terms of staff?
And with regards to staff, city staff.
Well, you know, that's kind of it's a fine line to be a leader and to interact with staff, because you're essentially, you don't want to give them direction without specifically, you want a council that gives direction specifically, but you want to interact with staff in a cooperative and productive manner. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for with regard to an answer, but and also I know that the council has liaisons to various committees, and that helps you become part of the community in terms of attending those meetings and interacting with like the small business group and the downtown business group and the airport group.
So then just to kind of go after that a little bit more on the role of the council member in the community. Can you expand upon that?
Well, basically it's to bring back the feedback that you get from the community and discuss it with the citizens, and then bring it back to council, and if it's warranted, bring it up and for an initiative for council to consider.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also wanted to ask you, you had mentioned that it's important to pursue efficiencies in government, and you cited energy efficiencies in particular.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you've given it any thought as to what other kinds of efficiencies that the city could engage in, or efforts that would make it more efficient, if you've given that any thought.
I have not examined it beyond the energy efficiency. I would, in everyday communication and in everyday consideration as a council member, you always look to make sure you're getting a good product from your staff and that it's being done in an efficient manner. I think that the city's move toward automation has been excellent. I know the software that they use that they just installed and that are continuing to install to help strengthen the business license and financial reporting services of the city. And I think that those are positive steps forward.
Thank you. And I have one final question. Can you tell us how you prepared for the application process, and how you prepared for the interview today?
Well, I have been going along. I've attended council meetings periodically. I reviewed the budget. So that's how I prepared.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Council members, are there any additional follow-up questions for Mr. Kramer? Mr. Kramer, if you'll please have a seat, and we're going to ask if there's any public comment for you. Is there, we'll let you sit down first, but sit in the first row because you're just going to come right back up and give us a closing statement. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Kramer, please come on up, and you've got a minute to give your closing. Sorry about that. We've got to be the same for everybody, so.
Well, you know, my closing statement would be, I think I'm well qualified to assume the office of the city council member, and I'd appreciate the opportunity. I think you've seen that I've worked hard on the various committees that I've had pleasure to be a part of. I do my homework. I read all my materials, and I prepare for each meeting. So I think that would be an asset to the city, and I look forward to being favorably considered for the opening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll get our next candidate in a moment.
Can we confirm that that's the heat and not the air conditioner that's turning on? Okay.
Oh.
I'm just very cold right now.
That should be a prerequisite, you know. You have to know how to fix that. When Cheryl was on the council, she would, you know, try to adjust it, but it's just so hard. But I'm with you. I'm cold.
I'm cold.
I,
She ran she ran a heating and air conditioning.
yes, and she couldn't, still, it was difficult even for her to get that under control. That's what I'm saying. It's like.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome, Miss Leslie. If you would state your name for the record, and you've got 2 minutes to provide an introduction to the council.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'm Heather Leslie. And I currently hold the position of Chief Business Officer at Auburn Union School District. Been there about 2 years. However, I've been in the community since I was about 7 years old. I am a Placer graduate, and this community has really, I guess, encompassed a majority of my adult life, giving back in charity work and community service. In addition to that, I've spent a lot of time looking at different ways that I could serve the community. So after I was out of the 2030 Club, Auburn 2030 Club number 19, you age out at some point. So I reached age 40 and you have to be a lifetime member. So as I did that, I thought, how can I better serve our community? And so that's when I started looking into Rotary Club and different ways that I could reach out. One of the reasons why I looked at City Council when the opportunity came up was I really have a great deal of experience working with public jurisdictions, not just school districts or education. But in my consulting life, I also worked with fire districts, cities, counties, and even water agencies at times. So it gave me a really good insight as to what's how they operate and what's needed. Also, in my experience, I've spoken with and testified for many councils, boards of supervisors, educational boards. So it's given me a really good outlook.
Thank you. All right,
23
with
seconds
23 seconds to spare.
Yes.
All right, we're going to begin with Councilmember Holmes with the first of the questions.
Yes, specifically, why do you want to serve on the city council?
That's a good question. So, and I asked myself that a couple of times. I think when in picking it, again, I think a lot of people get onto boards and councils with particular personal agendas. And why I think that can be good in a lot of ways, I think the big picture is often missing. Even in my professional life and in my personal life, big picture is important to me, as well as making sure that you're making sound and uninfluenced decisions. City council for me really just kind of came up as that opportunity, and my opportunity to actually give back and serve and use the talents and skills that I've gained in all of my years of experience. Again, not just working in education, but also working for many, many districts to have that inside knowledge. For example, listening to the fire department presentation recently about the mitigation ordinances and services, that really kind of hit home with me, because one of the things that Chief Rogers discussed in it particularly was that this was this great initiative, but what it really took in the follow through or took to implement it wasn't really fully considered. And that's something that I've had to either fully consider, or what the implications are for developments in various cities and counties, how it affects school districts, how it affects fire departments, how it affects our public safety. And so that's kind of a great example, if you will. So that's something I think that my experience could bring to city council and can bring to our community, is that ability to say, this is a fantastic idea. Let's look at how this rolls out before we make any large decisions. And I think that's just, I mean, you know, in a year's time, you're not going to, you know, and possibly longer, you're not here to turn the tides. And I don't think that's really what city council needs at this point. We have challenges just like any other city or any other jurisdiction or county. And I think that you need somebody that's going to have that personal experience, that's able to look at both sides and be willing to take recommendations from staff in order to assist us to become better.
Thank you. The next question is mine. What are the roles and responsibilities of city council members at City Hall and in the community?
Thank you. You know, this is also one of those things where it becomes tough for people that possibly haven't served on committees or worked with them previously. A role of a city council member is very much like it would be for any other board or board of supervisors, as the policymakers, as the decision makers. This is where you have to take in, you know, your own findings, the input from your constituents in your community, and also look at the work that's done by city staff. Those are your eyes and ears. That's the expertise. Obviously, we can't be experts in everything, so that's why we look to our city staff to give us those recommendations and that information. I guess it's more of a stay out of the weeds type of thing as much as you can. As far as in the community, I look at that to be essentially like a liaison, if you will. Meeting with business members, talking to community members, attending events, really showing forth and bringing out the positive note of what is good with our city, what we're trying to do for our city, especially when you have someone that might be a little bit more upset about some decisions or some initiatives or regulations that are coming. To really kind of meet with them and discuss what that looks like, try to explain the city's position, and then also, of course, be a helping hand and be a listening board when they need it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Riddell Harris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What is your understanding of the city's current budget and fiscal position? And what specific suggestions would you have to change it if needed?
Thank you. Oh, the second part's a little loaded. So my understanding of the current city's budget is, of course, you know, we're kind of eking by, as far as I can tell. We've got, just as everything else, some concerns as to how we're going to meet financial obligations. There has had to be cuts to our public safety. I know that there is a large public outcry to increase public safety, and you know, the numbers just aren't often there. So you do what you can. Having to deal with a public budget myself and have dealt with one for over 20 years, those decisions are very difficult to make. I also know that tax revenue is not where we'd like it to be. We don't have the same type of sales tax incomes that maybe surrounding areas of influence do. So it would be really nice, instead of how to, like, you know, maybe fix them. You know, I, as a city council member, I would want to hear all the ideas that people have come forth with. I know there's been some public comment in the past for city council as to what some of those ideas could be, but I would love to hear the ideas of our city staff and also what's workable within that, and then come to a cohesive decision as to how we'd want to move forward with that.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Amara.
Thank you. What objectives do you believe are most important to position the city for long-term success?
Thank you. I think some of the objectives really for success overall are going to have to be, of course, I'm gonna knee jerk right to it, is of course budget stabilization, but making sure that while we're doing that, that we have the things in place that we need to have. So making sure that we're paying our staff appropriately, making sure that we have those positions in place, making sure that we're addressing public safety. I think the other concern that's one that I wrestle with particularly is growth. So as we start to look at how we need to grow as a city, but at the same time, being a long-term a resident of the city of Auburn, you have that fear of wanting to grow. You don't want it to become this overly big city. You want to maintain the good pieces of Auburn, the charm, the old town atmosphere, things like that. So I think carefully structured growth, with an eye to how we can look to attract businesses, and how we can attract more families into our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the set of questions that we have for this evening's interview, but I'm going to open it up to council members for follow-up questions. Councilwoman Amara, do you have any follow-up questions?
I do. Thank you. So just on the last question, with regard to objectives, you indicated that we need to have growth, but it has to be structured growth. Can you just elaborate on what your definition of structured growth is, and how would that look?
Thank you. In my personal opinion, again, and I have not been a city planner before, so I'm not going to pretend that I was one. However, you know, I've heard talks and rumors before about different plans or propositions that are put forth for the city of Auburn. For example, one that I heard was talking about like multifamily housing to be built on top of historical buildings in the Old Town area. You know, rumor, could it be? You know, of course, my first thought, having done a lot of public construction work in my past, is, oh my gosh, I don't think the buildings can hold those. However, that's also something we want to weigh of, okay, what does that look like for parking? What does that look like for this? So again, growth, but not just a knee jerk for growth. I see a lot of cities and have had to testify at a lot of city councils before where a knee jerk have growth happens without understanding what infrastructure you're going to need for that. So, and again, you know, arguing for public services, there's response times that you have to have that are required and that are in policy. And if you're just going to grow and you're growing in citizens or growing in certain types of businesses and you're not looking at how that infrastructure is going to work, then you're going to have a collapse at some point. And that's something that we don't want to be stuck with as a city. In addition, if we're going to start looking at more businesses that I've heard or corporations, how are those placed so they're not impacting our tourist areas that are a lot of revenue? How is that impacting our environmental areas? And how also is that going to impact our families that live here?
Councilwoman, or actually Vice Mayor Vidal Harris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two questions for you. First off, our staff is critically important to us. They're great staff. It's really important to make sure that we're meeting all their needs. Can you talk about your organization? You work at a large public organization. Can you talk about how you ensure that you meet your staff's needs, including the ones that you don't see every day who are maybe at the lower levels or different levels of your organization?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I wouldn't say we're necessarily large. We're still considered a small district. So I appreciate it.
Teachers and stuff, you're still larger than us.
I appreciate the thought though. It makes you feel good. However, I mean, I think it just depends on what the staff needs are. So when you talk about staff needs, I mean, that's very broad. So you're thinking about, you know, job security or, you know, wages are tough now as they are everywhere else. You know, it's very hard to keep wages up with the growth of inflation, especially when you're in a school district that's in fiscal crisis, which is something that's a little bit different than all the other school districts around us at this point. However, you know, as the city goes, you know, when you're talking about staff needs, I think showing appreciation is one of the big ones, understanding that making those connections with staff, even if they are in lower levels, and that's a lot of the staff that I supervise. And really, to be honest, our lower level staff are the ones that are really making things happen. One of the things that I always taught my son was always make friends with the school secretary and the custodian because they're the ones that run the school. So it's, you know, and to me, coming from and building up over time, I mean, I started as a lowly classified staff myself, working for Placer County Office of Education, and have come here through a degree in, you know, earning a degree in human resource management and becoming, you know, a certified educational facility planner and a certified business official, and also obtaining my contractor's license. So I've had a lot of experience over those years. And I think just meeting the needs of them is also helping them grow and encouraging them and making sure that they have all the tools they need to succeed.
Okay, great. And you talked about this one a little bit earlier, but I wanted to go in more detail. What do you see as the future of Auburn? What would you see if you could make Auburn look a certain way or change in a certain way? What would Auburn look like 20 years from now?
Oh, could also be loaded because this might not be a favorable answer, but I would love to see it very much how it looks right now. I would love to see it prosperous. I would like to see it have the same type of charm, the same events, the same sense of community. with all the same things that everybody has grown used to. I know many of us that have lived here for a long time, it's really hard when change is hard for anybody, but when you see businesses or, areas that you've gone to for years or as a kid and they become like a different business or they're torn down, it's very difficult to see that change. But we've got two very distinct areas. If you're old school, the upper town and the lower town, but we've got downtown and old town, and they are very solid in what they are. So I think just keeping those and encouraging them and making sure that we're looking at, how we can attract businesses to those empty storefronts, I think it is really what I would like to see. But I'd also like to see it be comfortable in its revenues and making sure that we're able to take care of our city for years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Holmes?
Yes, a couple of questions. Are you a graduate of Leadership Auburn?
I am not a graduate of Leadership Auburn, but I have spoke at Leadership Auburn.
You've spoken to them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now you recognize that if you're appointed to this position, you'll be expected to run for the office next November.
You may be expected to run.
Maybe. I was going to say, well, I don't know. I might
vote on that, but
you might pass me a note and says, maybe not this time, Heather. I don't know. But I don't see any issue with that. I think if it's a good fit, I think if my time served here is good, I absolutely would have no qualms with running.
Thank you.
I have a quick follow-up to his follow-up, just quick. I just want some clarifications. Being in Leadership Auburn isn't a prerequisite, but what do you mean when you say you have spoken to Leadership Auburn?
So I was asked to come and give a presentation in regards to the state of the school district and also to speak to how school districts in general are funded and what that looks like as far as, tax revenues and how much lottery money we actually get, which isn't much. And kind of give an overview with that. So it was a really great experience. That class was really nice. I think people always walk away with knowing a little bit more than they did before. Because as you know very well from serving on our school board for so many years, it's people anticipate that you're funded a certain way, much as they anticipate that, hey, my tax money covers the police. Why aren't there more policemen? My tax money covers the firefighters. Why is my station not open? And that's not really how cities and counties and districts are funded.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you perhaps talk a little bit about your specific experience with the city? So have you served on committees or commissions, or what kind of relationship have you had with the city or involvement with the city?
I have not served particularly on any commissions or councils, obviously, before. However, I've been kind of hand in hand with the city in a lot of areas for quite some time. So in my charity work, I've had to deal quite a lot with city dignitaries, even spanning all the way back to when I was a banker in a past life, worked very closely with the Chamber of Commerce and attended many events with the Chamber. I've assisted in planning many community activities, including for years our Easter egg hunt that was sponsored by the Auburn 2030 Club number 19, in addition to our Kids Spree, and also many other large community events, including Brewfest, which was very similar to the one that the Fairgrounds and Rotary had worked on previously. So in doing that, I've had to work very closely, I think, with a lot of people who've either been in city council or even planning. And that's in my personal life. As far as professional life, that's a little bit different. Again, not serving on that side of it, instead standing more on the podium, discussing either legalities or, opposing or being pro a lot of development or zoning changes or general plans or environmental impact reports or CEQA reports. So bless you. It's I've had a lot of varied experience when it comes to that. But as far as serving on a council or a particularly city committee, I have not had that experience.
Thank you. And then you talked about our budget and that the tax revenue is not where we would like it to be. Did you have any suggestions on things that we could change with regards to our budget, or?
So again, not to step on any of the city staff's toes, because that's really where they would come in on a lot of that and recommendations and working through those processes. But obviously, the easy answer is business. How do we get in corporations? How do we bring business in? And I think that's been a universal discussion over time. And we are limited on growth. So we're not going to have the same opportunities that maybe like the city of Roseville has had, or other jurisdictions, or even the unincorporated areas of Placer County. So as we start to look at that, it's again, how can we attract a business? How can we get a larger corporation to start bringing in some of that sales tax revenue? I think that's one of the key things that we want to look at, especially with an impending, possible loss of, sales tax contract in a few years. How do we start to build ourselves so we can build back that revenue and be prepared for maybe if that contract doesn't renew? And even though it's possibly 10 years away, that's going to come up quick when it's a very large amount.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so very much. We're going to ask you just to take a seat for a moment, and we're going to see if there's any public comment. Is there any public comment? Just don't go too far, because it looks like we don't have any public comment.
I tried to leave.
Well, I don't mean it to be that. But now if you'd like to have 1 minute for your closing.
Thank you so much. So again, thank you for your time this evening, and I really do appreciate it. Again, I don't come in here with saying that we're going to change the tide or try to sway city council into one ideal or another, but I really feel that my experience and hands-on working with so many different components of both, city and county and development and emergency services really lends a different overview of how many of the items that come before council or some of the decisions that we could be facing could happen. I want to make sure that I can be of assistance in moving some of the initiatives that are already going, such as possible solar initiatives, and again, fire mitigation, and how we roll those types of ordinances out, and just really essentially use my experience to assist city council in making their decisions or be a sounding board for staff if needed. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to talk and for your time this evening.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right. We have, I believe, just one more candidate. And after that candidate council, I'm going to move for a quick recess. Yes. Good evening. If you would like to state your name for the purposes of the record, and then you have 2 minutes to give your introduction.
Okay. Whew. My name is Michelle Sierra Salmons. Madam Mayor, honorable council, men and women, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and humbly ask for your consideration to be one of your colleagues. I feel I bring the most well-rounded experience. I bring 8 years of being an elected school board member. 4 of those years, I was board president. During that time, I was also on the board of directors for the California Latino School Boards Association. Community-wise, I've been a member of 3 different nonprofits. I was secretary, vice president, and president of the Caring Heart Society. We were a small but mighty community-based nonprofit that catered to the needs of women and children. I've been a member of the Auburn Moose, and currently I am an active member in our Auburn Kiwanis. Professionally, I've been with the Placer County Assessor's Office for 24 years. I'll be celebrating 25 years come April of next year. During that time, the past 10 years, I've been representing the assessor's office in various tax assessment appeals, mostly based on legal issues. For the past 15 years, I was traveling, this was before COVID, and now we do mostly WebEx-based webinars where I've been teaching on various tax assessment issues, anything ranging from death and taxes to Proposition 19, which is a fairly new piece of legislation that just went through that really has affected counties and eventually our cities with property tax revenue. Personally, I've lived here in Auburn for the past 25 years. I moved here to be with my now husband, Bill, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so very much. We're going to begin our round of questioning with Councilman Holmes.
Oh, yes. You kind of answered this already, but why do you want to serve on the city council?
I'm a helper by nature, and I see that our city has done a lot of great things. It's given me so much in these past 25 years. I grew up in a small town very similar to Auburn, right down to a railroad going through our tracks in Fillmore in Ventura County. When I moved here, I really didn't know what to expect. I'd only been here a couple of times. But since I moved here, I've established a career. I've established friendships, and really those friendships have become family. I've seen generations of my neighbors now grow up and go through our schools, and I feel that I'm at that level where I can provide more of my assistance, more of my time to give back to the city that has given so much to me.
Thank you. Next question is mine. What are the roles and responsibilities of city council members at City Hall and in the community?
Well, besides the various policymaking actions that occur, it's also really to also steward our city's finances, our infrastructure, public safety, at the same time engaging with our public to make sure that we are doing right by them and right by our city. It's definitely a role that I'm a little familiar with, being on a school board and having to engage with various stakeholders, parents, teachers, students, other members of government entities, because quite frankly, as a city, you want your schools to be strong. And if you're a school board member, you want to be able to say that your schools are in a great city.
Okay. Vice Mayor Riddell Harris.
Thank you. What is your understanding of the city's current budget and fiscal position, and what specific suggestions would you have to change it if needed?
Wow. Well, when it comes to the budget, I know that we're not exactly flush with money. We have various projects, long-term, short-term, and the resources, unfortunately, are not unlimited. So it really is up to the council to make sure that we are addressing short and long-term projects with the resources, prioritizing, giving much thought, comprehensive approach to figuring out the budget. In terms of my suggestions, I'd certainly like to keep up with the priority of public safety, not just with law enforcement, but with our fire preparedness. We are in a dangerous zone when it comes to wildfire and the risk that we have. We also I would like to see, I'm really excited actually about the form-based code project that's been coming along. So I think once that comes, I really would like to dive into that, since I know there's been so much work that's gone into it. And hopefully with the results of that form-based code, we can certainly start the hard work in revitalizing our city, especially the commercial corridor.
Thank you. Councilmember Amara.
Thank you. What objectives do you believe are most important to position the city for long-term success?
Well, absolutely making sure that the work that we would do as a council is comprehensive, collaborative, not just with ourselves, but with the staff that we have that actually is going to be doing the work of carrying out our policies and procedures, really striving on community engagement. We're not a small town, we are a small city, but in the 25 years that I've been here, we are a passionate bunch. And so for me, I would like to just make sure that we're all working together, even though our priorities might be slightly different from one another. One of the main experiences I've had with being on the school board is knowing that we all wanted what was best for our kids, maybe just not using the same methods to get there. And in observing the city council for the past, I want to say 8 years, I've seen the same dynamics where we all want what's best for our city. We know that we don't have flush resources, but we do have some very shared priorities in wanting to keep our residents safe, to keep our businesses revitalized, and to make sure that our community is engaged with all that we do.
Thank you. I'm still writing, sorry. Okay, well, that ends the structured portion of today's interview. And so at this point, I'd like to open it up to council members for follow-up questions. And I'm going to start with Councilwoman Amara. Unless you're not ready. Or if
I'm
you're-
ready. That's
okay.
fine. Thank you. So you spent, did you say 8 years on the Auburn Union?
Yes.
Okay. I did 12. So anyway, so
tried.
That's congrats. Huh? So, so with, I know Auburn Union has had their ups and downs. My question to you is, based on that experience, how and what can you bring if you were chosen to be on the Auburn City Council?
One of the main experiences I had was really listening to our constituents and our stakeholders when we were going through the fiscal recovery implementation program. All of us board members had someone that would represent them. And so getting that information, it forced us as a board to really look at our infrastructure, our facilities, the community needs for our kiddos, transportation. So it wasn't just what's going on in the classroom, it was really what decisions we made were going to affect those students. So by coming into the council, it's simply not just looking at a budget and a spreadsheet. It really is going to be aware of what the effects are of the decisions that we make. One of the other experiences I've had in working for the county is I'm one of those staff members that typically has to carry out policies and procedures. So that's another aspect of my experience that I bring, is that I can discuss policies and really have a real advantages to knowing how that's going to affect our staff. And if we're asking too much of staff, are we underestimating them? Are we really looking at the resources and the capacity? I think that's something that I bring, is knowing that we need to make sure what the wants and needs of the city match our resources and try to prioritize all of those things together. It's a hard balance.
Mm-hmm. And to follow up on that, does a entity like the city get more resources?
Beg. No, just kidding. Well, really, it's a matter of property tax revenue. I mean, that's really the big thing. And I know that we've looked at particular bond measures. Our school board just tried to pass a bond. So I know that's one source of revenue, but it's definitely property tax revenue. And our property values have been rising here in Auburn.
I was talking about city.
The city. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, it usually is property tax revenue that the city gets. And so, but there are also grants. There are, so, we've had one-time monies, especially with COVID, but really it's property tax revenue. And if we look into specific charges like sewer and other revenues that come in from different utilities, that's another portion of revenues. But we also look at bonds on occasion as well. I mean, that is something that most government entities, like cities, have to look at in order to get additional funds for the projects that they want to do around the city.
Thank you.
Councilman Holmes, do you have any follow-up questions?
Yes. Are you a graduate of Leadership Auburn?
No, I am not. I worked full-time for the county, so I was not able to participate this year. But it is something I would love to do in the future, whether or not I'm on council.
All right, well, now this appointment would only be for 1 year. And would you be prepared, if you're selected, would you be prepared to run next November?
Yes. Although I know coming in, this position is only for 1 year, I wouldn't commit unless saw myself in the long haul. So yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris, follow-up questions?
Thank you. Yes. You work in a fairly large organization. How do you go about, our staff are critical to our success and they're great. How do you go about making sure that you're in touch with staff that maybe you don't see on a regular basis and that your staff is getting their needs met and that communication?
I'm not sure how the structure works specifically in the city. I know that in my time on the school board, I met periodically, not just with the superintendent, but with other staff members. Sometimes it was our union leads, really anyone that wanted to meet with me. And so if there were concerns about, well, this is a policy that you want to do in our schools, I'm not sure if we have the capacity, that would be something that we would always discuss in our open meetings. But I was also open to having staff themselves come to me and say, hey, this sounds great, but I'm not sure if we could pull this off. And so that would be my approach as well. I mean, obviously, if there are certain protocols, I would absolutely follow them. But I've never not wanted to listen to someone from staff, knowing that I'm a staff member myself.
Great, thank you. In regards to the future of Auburn, what do you see for the future of Auburn over the next 20 years? Wow. I know it's a big question.
Right, I know it's crystal ball time. Well, again, going back to the form-based code, I mean, our zoning laws haven't been restructured in 50 years. And we also didn't have a strategic plan for many years as well. So I was happy to see both happening. Because if you don't plan, any organization would end up being just scrambling and just fixing things left and right. I'm excited about the long-term changes that Auburn is possibly bringing, yet still keeping in mind that we are a small city, again, with very passionate citizens that want to maintain that charm. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I've stayed here, is because of that charm. Because even though we're a growing city, there's thoughtful growth, and I appreciate that. We have very community-minded nonprofits and just citizens that maybe they're not part of nonprofits, but they want to do good work. And so I think seeing that all come together with the strategic plan that the city is making, the form-based codes, in order to make sure that we have a positive growth around our commercial corridor, I think all that together is going to create just such a strong, vital city that people won't just want to come for the endurance capital of the world. They want to come here. They want to raise their kids here. And I would love to see that continue. And I would love to be a part of that.
Great. Thank you. I have one more question.
Yes.
In regards to working for this, for Placer County, I'm a little bit concerned about a conflict of interest that you work for Placer County. When I worked for the city of Roseville, there were some areas where I couldn't participate because we were both cities in the same county, and we don't even share much in common and don't have any borders that are shared. With Placer County, there's a lot of them building in our sphere of influence. There's a lot of things where we overlap with them or may not be in agreement with Placer County. How do you see that working so that there's not a conflict of interest for you?
I'm very glad that you brought up that question. Before I even applied for this job, I consulted with my elected official, the assessor, and we also got a legal opinion from the county council from Placer County. So I wanted to make sure that was all cleared before I even put my hat in the ring. But it was something that I considered, and it was something I considered when I was on the school board as well. It was something that we considered and made sure it was all clear when I was appointed to the planning commission. So this is actually the third time where I've had to go to my county council and say, hey, is this working? And there, I mean, not to say that there will never be a time where I would have to recuse myself. That might happen. But for the most part, we didn't see any foreseeable issues that would force me to do that because I'm here to work for the city.
So as we're working on our general plan that impacts the county, you don't see there being any conflict of interest with doing that?
We did not.
Okay, great.
No, but thank you for asking.
Okay, thank you. Just to follow,
Oh,
yes.
yeah,
well,
that,
can I just on that
that was
line.
my, go ahead.
Yeah, I
that-
was going to say that I appreciate that you obtained the legal counsel opinion on the conflict of interest, but it sounds like what I think you're saying is that would you have any difficulties in prioritizing the city over the county, given that the county is your employer?
Absolutely not. I mean, for the past 8-10 years, I've had to juggle and make sure that my day job stays my day job and keeping that separation between my elected duties and my job as a staff member. I mean, I get different perspectives and I'm able to provide that, but they've not conflicted with each other. Not when I was, and I don't see that happening now. I mean, I do really try to maintain a level of respect for both the offices I had served and for the office that I do serve for the residents of Placer County, being on the assessor's team.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Yeah, that was more or less my question. Maybe I was going to also ask our council, do you anticipate any, it's just such a close tie, and I know I have to conflict out of many things too. I just wanted our,
Yeah, so I have not reviewed the opinion from the county council, so I won't speak to the specifics of that. Generally, there's two things we'd think about. The first one would be an incompatible office between the two. Not sure that it's an office. Certainly the council member seat is an office, but an employee and an office don't create an incompatible office, so they would need to be two offices. So I don't see that as an issue. Certainly anything involving the city of Auburn that went to the county, that would typically require recusal on the county side. And under the Political Reform Act, there wouldn't be a financial interest that would seem to be implicated.
Thank you. I know that you spoke about your experience on the school board. Can you talk about your city experience? What experience have you had with the city of Auburn on committees, commissions, things of that nature?
I've been on the planning commission for the past almost year, when Mike Holmes appointed me. So I've learned a lot already about form-based code. Or working with the Historic Design Review Committee has also been a very positive experience. And I do follow every single agenda that comes in from the city. So I might not have been here in person, but I have been following city business for the better part of 8 years. And I'm also very involved in community events. And so I'm very much aware of the ties that the city has with our business associations, both downtown and Old Town, and of course, our Chamber of Commerce. So I know that being on city council, we're all over the place. I don't think I go anywhere without running into any of you. So that is something that I keep in mind, is that, just being out there and being present. I think that's what it really boils down to, being present.
Also, if you could maybe just talk a little bit more about the roles and responsibilities of the council member in the community. And you gave us some good discussion about the city, but just maybe talk about what do we look like in the community?
Well, we definitely want to look like,
Or what do we do?
what do we do? Um, Well, we certainly attend different events. We know that, I mean, over the past 8 years, we've all run into each other at, like, say, the State of Community, different chamber events. Just most recently, our tree lighting ceremony, but there's also different events like our Days of Giving or our community service days. And so it's really important for us to just be out there in the community. And so for me, as an elected official, I mean, it might sound a little cliche, but I do work for the people. So I do want to be around our constituents. I want to be around our citizens of Auburn. And so, because not all of them come to city council meetings, or if they're going to come to us, it's usually not to say hi. It's because they have a concern. It's because they have a question. And the experience I have, not just in being an elected official for Auburn School Board, but also being someone that engages with taxpayers on a daily basis. I think it's very important for us to be out there, whether or not it's just, you know, a specific city sanctioned event or a chamber event or a business association event. I think it's just being out there, doing our shopping, doing our business here in Auburn, taking advantage and showing other folks all the great things that we have here, not just our businesses, but our schools and our outdoor areas. I mean, we're just a really great place. And maybe it just sounds really cliche, but I really love this city. This city's my home now. I don't imagine myself living anywhere else. And so I just want to do what's best for this city.
Thank you. Any other questions, council members? Okay, so we'd ask you just to take a seat in the front row and we're going to open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment?
Hello, wonderful city council and mayor. I'm Jamie Ross. I actually withdrew from this application process because I knew you were in good hands. I also have some unfinished school board business that I have to attend to, but you will see me in 2024, hopefully alongside Michelle Sierra Salmons. I had the pleasure and opportunity to work with her on the board, and she's actually the one that believed in me and brought me in. And because of her, that I feel like I am the leader that I am today. So I just wanted to say her qualitative, her quantitative, she always brought in data from both sides, had a great perspective, was able to see other sides of things and then come and bring it together, especially as our president. So although we have great candidates, I am definitely a fan of Michelle Sierra Salmons and would love to see her have a seat on this council.
Thank you. Thank you. Additional public comment at this time? Luckily, we don't have questions for the public comment, folks. So, all right, any additional public comment at this time? All right, we will go ahead and close public comment. And as I promised council, we will have a quick, let's do a, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I did not give you an opportunity to give your closing statement. So please,
Thanks,
you have 1 minute for closing statement. I'm glad you, thank you, Miss Jackie. I'm looking for my bathroom break. But
You and me both.
yes, no, sorry. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, again, I think I bring what the council needs to hit the ground running. I have experience in policymaking. I have experience in community engagement. Whether or not I hold elected office, I think an engaged member needs to be out there. They need to be present. So while I would absolutely be honored to serve with you, just know that the work that I do will not stop. I will be here to support. I will be here to engage, and you would be in good hands with anyone, but I really, truly think that if I'm elected, or excuse me, if I'm appointed, I really could hit the ground running. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so very much. All right, now I will call, it is 10 minutes, okay? 10-minute recess. All right, 10-minute recess. Mike, did you graduate from Leadership Auburn?
Yes.
What year were you?
Well,
I need you.
2000 and
One of the first?
2003.
Okay, so like the first one.
Well, no, there was one earlier.
One.
than that, yeah.
Yeah. This one is actually.
Wow.
Are we 10 minutes? All right. We will reconvene. Thank you very much for that quick recess. So I wanted just to kind of run down the next phase of this process. This will be deliberation by the city council members. Again, this is a little awkward because we have to have this conversation about each of you in a public setting. But again, I feel your pain. I was there too. I think, Mike, you were as well a couple years ago, 3 years ago. So so we understand how that can be, but we are conducting the people's business and we are conducting it in a public setting. So there is that. Just to again reiterate, the appointment if we're ready, we can certainly make an appointment tonight. If we're not ready, then we can make the appointment tomorrow night. We have a city council meeting scheduled for tomorrow. So there is that option if we're not able to make a decision, render that decision today. With regards to the motion itself, we would need a motion and a second to appoint an individual. That would happen by resolution. Because we suspended the reconsideration rules under Robert's rules, if a person is moved for appointment and that individual does not secure a majority vote, which means at least 3, if not all 4 votes, then that individual can be brought up again during the same meeting without an additional motion of reconsideration. Certainly, we hope that we aren't going to replicate what's happened in the in Congress with regards to the speaker, but we also recognize that there could be a round of a couple of votes, just depending on where we are. Again, this is not something that we as a council have been able to discuss or deliberate in a private setting. And so we really don't know where we are. We've all participated in the same interview process. We've reviewed your applications, but this is really our opportunity to hear from each other. And again, so it could take a couple of rounds. Who knows? We may have to go till tomorrow. So we do have maximum flexibility. So I just want to assure my colleagues that we do have that flexibility. And so with that, and if you feel like we need to have a second public comment, I don't believe that we do at this point in time. So I wouldn't entertain that unless it was the majority of the council members wanted to do that. So with that said, I'd like to begin deliberation. And so who would like to go first? Don't jump all at once. And again, but I'd just like to say, let's first deliberate and discuss before a motion is made, if we could, just so we can hear each other out and so forth. So thank you very much. Thank you, Councilwoman Amara.
Okay. Since no one wanted to go first, I will say this. First of all, every single candidate, I was very impressed. I read thoroughly each application. I listened thoroughly. I've done my own research, and I am very, very impressed. And thank you, all of you, all 5 of you, for standing up and submitting your application and standing up and giving us your thoughts, your perspective, your knowledge, your background, your experience. And honestly, I would not be disappointed if any of you were elected and 4 of you weren't. I really am impressed with all of you. Thank you again. But with that being said, I do feel we have to make a choice. And so I want to look at everything, and I have looked at each and every candidate, and I feel there's a couple that I think are wonderful, but maybe need a little more time. I feel Michelle is very good. However, I think her experience on planning is a really good experience for her. Never having really been on city government, I think she is doing a good job on planning, and I'd hate to see her go off planning. I'm very impressed. You're a very personable person, or I shouldn't be speaking to you. I'm speaking to council. She is a very personable person. But again, like I said, I think she serves the city very well on planning. I don't know if I'm going to go through each and every one of them, but Michelle stands out. But then I've come to the realization, I think that she would be, again, it would be a loss for planning. I think she just got there and I hate to see her off that. And in the future, I think she will make a good city council person. With regard to Heather, I think she's, you know, she has a lot of experience in the school district. I don't see that, how that translates into the city. I know she's very intelligent, and I'm sure if she were put on the council, she'd be excellent. But again, I just think maybe needs a little more time. With regard to the two attorneys, I think they're both very intelligent. They both have a lot of qualities that stand out. Paul, though, Aronowitz seems to have been really most recently involved in transactions that involve our county, our city, and major transactions that involves a lot of negotiations, a lot of getting along with people, a lot of research, a lot of reasoning, and I think he'd be a very qualified candidate. Glenn Kramer, excellent, has a wonderful background, and quite honestly is just, you know, has a lot of experience and a lot of involvement in our city. So that's more or less where I stand in terms of a synopsis of what we saw tonight. So I'd like to hear from all of you.
Thank you. Councilman Holmes?
Well, yes, I was also very impressed with each of the candidates. And I think eventually, I think all of them, if they are not appointed, should run maybe for the city council in future. And I will say that there were some issues that were not discussed that were of concern to me. And I didn't want to ask specific questions about them during the interview process, but I think we can come to a conclusion this evening if we get 3 votes.
That's fair.
Yeah, okay.
Councilwoman Riddell Harris?
I will echo what my colleagues have said. I think that all of the candidates were a high caliber and great candidates. I really appreciate all of you putting your hat in the ring. I know it's not easy to apply and also to be in front of everyone interviewing. It's a really awkward job interview, probably the most awkward one you'll ever have. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate everyone's background. I think there's a nice variety, but then there's a common thread of everyone really loving Auburn and everyone wanting to put in their putting their hat in the ring so that way they could help to assist the city that they love. And so that's something that I think all of the council has as well. And I think that's important. That's why I think all of you would have great assets that could contribute to the council. I would say the two that stood out to me as maybe the most qualified, or the ones that I think would be the best candidates, would be Paul Aronowitz. I think I'm saying his name correctly. And then also Michelle Sierra Salmons. So those are the two that I had the highest interest in discussing further.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I too would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to each of the candidates. This is not an easy process. Again, I feel your pain as I have been there, except that it was on Zoom during COVID. So it was just like, I really was on camera the whole entire time. So that was kind of crazy, but it can be a difficult process, and it's very different than running for office. When you're running for office, you're out, you're meeting, you're greeting, and you're really touching voters and so forth. And in this situation, you're not doing that. But so I do applaud and I appreciate each and every one of you coming forth and putting your name in the ring. and going through this process, this very difficult process. Everybody brings with them their strengths and weaknesses. We're all human, so none of us are perfect, and we don't have the perfect candidate before us. None of us are perfect. I'm certainly not a perfect mayor by any means. But we really do appreciate your willingness to serve and to step up and to take on this responsibility that pays about 0.5 cent an hour, because that's really what it comes down to. It's you do it because you love the city, you love the community, and you want to make it better. And so with that said, I do appreciate, and I'm saying that a lot, but I do, your commitment and your desire to serve. For me, it's important that this is really a precursor. The interview process, the application process is kind of a precursor to see what kind of council member we would have. So it was important for me to see how well prepared candidates were and what kind of homework they did and who did they speak to and who spoke for them and so forth, because that kind of tells me as a council member what to expect when someone sits up here with me at the dais. Being prepared, reading documents, making contacts, having those kinds of discussions, very important. And, another thing that's really important is as someone who's gracious. This is a difficult job. It's a humbling job. Sometimes you really, you're out there thinking you're making the best pitch and you can't get your colleagues to agree, and it can be very difficult, but it's important that we're all gracious and respectful of each other. And we understand that we do what the majority says, because this is a democracy. So we have to respect that as well. Looking for candidates that have a lot of involvement in the community. That's very important. I think that that's a precursor to serving in service as an elected or appointed office, because you really have that opportunity to reach out and touch the community and get a grasp on where they weigh in on issues and knowing where to go to get input, on certain issues. I think that's incredibly important as well. Understanding, and again, this kind of goes back to preparing, but understanding our financial situation and understanding the budget and where our revenues come from and where efficiencies can be made or cuts can be made. Sometimes we have to make those very, very difficult decisions, and understanding the role of the city council with not only each other and the city manager, but also in the community as well. As council members, we don't tell staff what to do except our city manager. He's the only person that truly we appoint. We don't go into Menjol and say, Menjol, please fix that pothole. That's not our responsibility unless we take an action to do that when we have a project or something. Well, I don't know. Do you do that, Mr. Holmes?
There are many people who go to Menjol and say, fix that pothole.
Many people. So, but I remember, no, we'll just never mind about any of that. I'll just continue on.
Sorry.
Understanding that role and understanding what it means to be representative. And I think that's very important. So someone that has some public service experience appointed and or elected, I think that really says something. I think that serving on the school board has been an opportunity for several council members to jump up to city council. Madam City Council Member Amara, and also Councilman Berlant started on the school board, and you kind of worked your way up. Of course, Sandy and I had the pleasure to work together on Planning Commission.
Yeah,
for I don't know how many years.
About 4 years.
About 4 years. So Sandy came up, school board, Planning Commission, and then came to council, and Daniel just came right up to council. So, and I think that that's really important because you understand how to deal with constituents. And that's, to me, that's very important. This is, for us, this is the big leagues, city council. It's the highest elected office in the city. So, having that prior experience is very important. So taking all of those issues into consideration, truly, for me, the top candidate today is Michelle. I think that she is has the full package. She's got the experience needed both at the appointed and the elected capacity. She's served as an elected school board member. She's on the Planning Commission now. I appreciate not wanting to lose her, but I also recognize that has given her some very valuable experience in learning about some of those planning things that I didn't really hear too many other candidates talk about. Mr. Kramer also served on the Planning Commission, so I give you a nod as well. And I did want to say Mr. Kramer has a lot of experience as well in public service. But I felt that Michelle's intricate involvement in the community, involvement with the chamber, with various service organizations, has really given her insight as to the appropriate groups on where to get to get input and how to get input She's a very gracious individual who seeks compromise, and I think that she would work well with all of us, knowing all of our personalities. Some of us have stronger personalities than others. I look at myself in particular. But I think that truly that she would work well with each and every one of us. I don't have any concern with regards to her ability to serve the city. I think that, you know, even though she's a county employee, I think that she can draw that line, and she's shown that she's been able to do that on the planning commission. Again, there's no legal conflict, but that's been resolved. But that her alliance would be, you know, to the city in that elected capacity. She's done it in the school board, and then with the planning commission, there's not been any problem as well. So really, truly, in all honesty, for me, the top candidate is Michelle at this time. So I don't know if we want to have additional deliberation. If there is no further deliberation, I would like to move the appointment of Michelle Sierra Salmons as our next council member to fill the vacancy. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Can I make a motion as well?
We have a motion on the table and it's been seconded, so I'm going to call for the vote.
Okay.
So, Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councilmember Amara,
No.
Holmes,
Aye.
Riddell Harris,
Aye.
and Mayor Dowden Calvillo.
Aye. Let the record show that we do have a majority vote at this time. It's a 3-1 vote. So congratulations, Michelle Sierra Salmons. You are our next appointed city council member. So with that said, I will turn it over to our attorney and city manager. Is there anything else that we need to do to conclude with this piece of it?
Happy to. So the resolution has a few blanks that I think the clerk will fill in before signing. With this motion, the resolution is adopted. It does take effect immediately. So the clerk also needs to give the oath of office.
Oh, so we would swear in right now.
If that is your desire.
We could also change that line in the resolution and make it the appointment effective at a later date, if that's what you all would wish. The current resolution is drafted for an effective immediately.
Oh, effective immediately, because our next meeting will be our reorganization. So did we?
It might be nice in case she wants anyone to.
Yeah, well, let's ask. Michelle, do you have a preference? Do
now?
you want to be sworn in now, or would you like to be sworn in at the reorganization, which will be December 4th?
Okay.
All right, so we'll do it. Amy's ready. Amy's
I'll have you standing here. Like.
ready. Oh, why am I standing up?
You can if you want to.
Take the oath, Sandy.
Okay. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Michelle Sierra Salmons,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic.
foreign and domestic.
I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Auburn City Council member
of Auburn City Council member
in and for the city of Auburn,
in and for the City of Auburn,
County of Placer,
County of Placer,
State of California,
State of California,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll give you a moment if you'd like to, yes, if you'd like to address the council.
Well, first of all, I do want to thank my fellow applicants. I really am humbled to see all the good people come out, and so, you know, you would have been in good hands with any of us. So just, I'm gonna do right by all of you. I promise. That's how I roll. And I will do all I can to serve this great city that's given so much to me. This is such a great moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, I just want to thank all of our applicants for coming forward and going through this somewhat of an awkward process. We really do appreciate your doing so. So thank you again. And hopefully you'll get involved with the city or continue your involvement with the city as you already are. Of course, those of them are. Okay, the next item on the agenda.
Mayor, really quickly, while we're on this item, can we announce that tomorrow's special session will
Oh.
be canceled?
Well, without objection, council, I will hereby cancel tomorrow's meeting. Seeing no objection, that shall be the order. The meeting tomorrow has been canceled. We do have a couple of extra items on the agenda, city manager's report. And if without objection, we'll defer the city committee.
I think
report.
so.
But we'll go ahead and.
Yeah,
Mr.
in the interest of brevity, I'll also defer to the next meeting. I don't really have anything specific.
Okay, because our next meeting won't be until December 11th. Is that right?
Right.
We have our reorganization.
You want to
meeting-
announce a reorg, yeah.
Yeah, is on December 4th. Okay.
December 4th.
All right, without objection, we are hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone. That went a lot faster than I